This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good looking friends. Someone is lying. Is it Sophie Trudeau or is it Meghan Markle? Let's dissect. So it appears that Sophie Trudeau is on a press tour to promote her new memoir on her shocking split to Justin Trudeau. In the Daily Mail yesterday, it was asked of Sophie Trudeau about her relationship with Meghan Markle. And here's what she had to say. According to whoever asked her this question about the relationship, she was very reserved, saying, I know her, but we haven't spent much time together. Well, folks, this looks very bad for not only Meghan Markle, but also for Sophie Trudeau. Did Sophie forget about these photos taken at the Soho House? Would you pretend to kiss someone in a photograph if you didn't spend much time together? Like, that's kind of weird. Unless you're drunk or high, which is a good possibility here. Or even more recently, this Archetypes podcast that she was featured on, Meghan made it sound like they were spending quite a bit of time together, especially over the course of 7 years.
This past summer, a friend of mine was in town with her kids for a few days. Now, this to me was very exciting because I hadn't seen her for a while, and the idea of getting our kids together.
If you don't remember, Meghan was retelling this farcical story about how her and Sophie were hanging out by the pool with her kids, or little ones, with this stupid pizza wrap that she bought for like $1 or something like that with pepperoni because she is like cost savings. She made it sound like Sophie and her were together, laughing it up, hanging out during the summertime, and then goes into this so called interview. But after it had been revealed that Meghan didn't do a lot of these interviews, when you listen to this the second time around, you realize that Meghan didn't give this interview with Sophie. And what she did was pretend that she was having this conversation with her, but you can clearly hear when the audio cuts and when Sophie chimes in. So the question becomes, why did Sophie go along with this and allow this to happen, only to come back now to say that she didn't know Meghan that well? Meghan here is explaining that she knew Sophie for like 7 years and how Sophie would send her like these little notes of encouragement during the time she was pregnant. All of this is such a sham. Just listen for yourself.
This was a real treat. We swam, we drank wine, we splashed in the water, then threw some pool floats in. And by the way, the inflatable pizza slice proved to be a big hit, which I found online, and I kid you not, the one without pepperoni was a few dollars less than the one with pepperoni. And yes, I'm still talking about the inflatable pizza float for the pool. We all got a good laugh out of that. But all that aside, this wasn't our day of being the wives and moms all perfectly coiffed with updos and pearls and demure smiles.
Meghan's so jealous of Catherine, like she can't even help herself. You know that she was talking about her in that moment.
This was the other version of us, both with wild curly hair and swimsuits and loose linen and huge belly laughs, big cuddles with our little ones, and quiet whispers of girl talk on the terrace, giddy, like absolute schoolgirls.
Again, if you didn't know someone well and you were the Prime Minister's wife of Canada, would you be laughing giddily like a schoolgirl with your hair down looking all ratchet? I don't think so.
You wondering who I'm talking about? I'll let her introduce herself.
For homies, it's Sophie G in the house, but nobody knows this.
Okay, if you didn't guess it yet, perhaps this introduction is more of what you're familiar with.
Sophie Grégoire is my legal name, and then Sophie Grégoire Trudeau because of the association. And I get called Madame because of protocol very often. I'm sure you know about, how that feels. And it just, my ears screech every time I'm like, oh, I'm not a Madame.
That's Sophie Grégoire Trudeau.
And if you notice, Meghan cuts in as if she's not there with Sophie. So, like, why would you reiterate that Sophie Trudeau if she's sitting in the room with you? This is so stupid now. You almost have to wonder, did Meghan take this intro of Sophie Trudeau from another interview that she gave? I mean, I wouldn't put anything past this woman at this point.
She's an activist, humanitarian mother, and also wife to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Sophie has become a dear friend and someone who I think is so emblematic of strength that comes from embracing your humanity even in the face of all these family and home and public pressures.
Meghan Markle and her dear friends who don't even spend time with her. Okay.
Keeping that sense of self while holding up the mantle of what comes with being a parent and a spouse, that's a full plate.
This is something Meghan knows nothing about, and it's almost as if she's projecting to get people to believe that her and Sophie are on the same level, in which we see Sophie's kids, but nobody sees Meghan's kids. And on top of that, if she does have these children, it's not her raising them. We know for sure she has all kinds of people around to do stuff for her. This woman is such a fraud. When you listen to this short interaction that Meghan wants the audience to believe is happening, you realize that Sophie does not really engage with Meghan in a full on conversation. Her responses are like 1 and 2 words, which would be easy to manipulate and have Meghan layer on top of her so called reaction. What gives Meghan away, and I can't believe none of us caught this at the time, was that Meghan goes from being in the present moment to then talking almost in the past tense per se. She doesn't stay consistent in this so-called podcast interview.
I I just absolutely adore you. And Sophie, you and I have known each other for, gosh, how many years now? Since I was living in Toronto.
Yeah.
When was that? When we went to the Canadian Fashion Awards
CAFA.
night. I think that's when
Yeah.
CAFA. That's
Yeah.
when I met you. And that was, what, 7 years ago? 8
Yeah,
years?
For
Something
sure.
like
For
that.
sure it's 7 years ago or more than that. Yeah.
Sophie's not just a wife or a first lady. She's the type of person who cares really deeply about her friends. She used to send me these little meditations during my pregnancy and voice notes, just these moments of encouragement. And I've gone to her over the years for advice.
Kind of strange to go to someone who you don't spend time with for advice, don't you think?
She knows what it feels like to be a mom and a partner, and specifically a mom and a partner in the public eye. And also how crushing the guilt of expectations can become.
The guilt that we feel as mothers or as women in general is self-imposed. I think we've learned to self-impose it. We're not born, a little girl is not born feeling guilty for being a girl. We learn it. And that's completely unacceptable. So I think that when I started becoming, an older girl and an early adult stage, I realized that we often define freedom as a way to be free from the world, but it's really a way to be free in the world.
A way to be free in the world, not free from the world.
After Sophie says this, you come to realize that what Meghan does is she deflects away from engaging with Sophie. And this is how you know that Sophie was not in the room at the time with Meghan. Meghan then veers off to deflect on talking about some stupid book called A Radical Awakening, in which she decides to grace us with her reading skills to read a passage. Then it goes back into this short, quick response between Meghan and Sophie. You're not really sure if Meghan's assistant read out this passage and then all of a sudden laid tracks in for Meghan, but it's very superficial. And quite frankly, I don't believe for 1 second that Meghan had this interview with Sophie. And if she did, then Sophie looks bad now for saying that she doesn't really know Meghan, because how could she be there in this podcast, allegedly, and Meghan go on and on about saying how they've known each other for 7 years, as well as Meghan getting these meditations from Sophie. My conclusion is that these two are nothing but two clout chasing clowns. And when you see Sophie go on this press tour for her memoir and mentions she hasn't spent much time with Meghan, it does come across as if she's saying, I really don't know Meghan. Then quickly after, then switches the conversation over to saying how her heart sank when she found out about Princess Catherine's cancer diagnosis. It just leads me to believe that Sophie understands anything that associates with Meghan does not do well. Also, Sophie sees that being on Team Catherine is the better team to be on, and I'm sure that this must have sent Meghan through the roof. I bet Sophie is not getting a jar jam. Perhaps Sophie is pissed off that she didn't get a jar jam. Who knows with these people? Perhaps maybe Meghan is no longer of use to Sophie, hence the reason why she did this distance. And of course, she's there to promote her memoir. So if she is connected to Meghan, perhaps maybe she didn't want any kind of blowback for being connected to her. I think also in this situation, if Meghan didn't do this interview with Sophie, then why did Sophie allow this to move forward? Is it because Sophie wanted her name in the media and this is what Meghan was gonna bring to it? I think it was kind of both. And now they both look so stupid because if Sophie hasn't spent much time with Meghan, then Meghan looks like a complete jackass for fabricating this fantasy life at the pool with the little ones when that never happened, in my humble opinion. But what do you guys think? I think it's important to put this on blast because if Sophie is willing to do this with Meghan, right, and allow for this to go along and play along with it, then who's to say that whatever she wrote in this memoir is real and has any truth? We've seen what Harry did with Spare. These people are all cut from the same cloth. It's all about money. And they're banking on the public that is predominantly stupid to fall for it. Why would anyone believe anything that Sophie Trudeau would have to say, especially if she's playing the same games that Meghan and Harry have been playing? Just my humble opinion, but definitely let me know your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.